Hi, I'm Jeff Miller, TD 13167 with the 501st Legion. The following videos are meant to be a brief introduction into the various parts of Sandtrooper armor, along with a few comments and tips. I hope you enjoy the videos and don't forget to subscribe. So first we're going to talk about assembly and just a general overview of how the shins are put together. So these two pieces of the shin actually come as two pieces and they have flashing off of them, and I can probably insert a picture here to kind of show you what I'm talking about. And where the shims come together, right here in this area, you have to trim this opening to fit onto your legs. But the most important thing in addition to that is not only does it need to fit onto your legs, it needs to fit down on top of your boot. So you need to be aware of this opening here at the bottom and be sure that you don't cut this too small, because what needs to happen is this has to sit basically over the top of your boot like this. And what should happen is when you put your shins on, they should rest over the top of your boot and they should just sit there from gravity. There shouldn't be anything holding the shin down onto the top of your boot. Well, unfortunately, when I sized my shins, I didn't do it right. I made this opening too narrow, so when my foot is actually in the boot, what was happening was the shin was riding up on top of the boot, either in the front or the back, to where it would not sit right. And then once it got up there, it would start turning and everything else. So what I ended up having to do is, on my boots, I added this Velcro strip, and that's just glued inside the boot. Basically, it's a piece of nylon with a piece of Velcro on it. There's E6000 on this Velcro, and there's E6000 inside the boot. And this has been here for several years. So what happens is when I put my shins on, again because they're too narrow, actually inside my shin, there's another piece of Velcro right up here in the middle that attaches to this. So that holds my shin completely secure on top of my boot the way that it should be, so that as I'm walking around, the front of the shin stays lined up, and actually this will sit a little bit lower, but it doesn't actually rise up against my boot, above my boot, and keep moving around in circles. So another thing to be aware of when you do this is that there's a couple of different options on how to close up the shins at the back. Some people use, it's almost like the clip that's on a bra, is the only way I can think of it, and they have an elastic on both sides. So you'd have two pieces of elastic in here, and this clip would be right here in the middle. And I looked over a lot of posts as to how people had done that, and some people had some complaints as to how it didn't really work, or it would come unfastened while they were walking. So I saw this other way online where people have actually just lined the entire back of the shin with Velcro. So what I did was the sharp or spiked part of the Velcro, I guess, is over on this side, away from the inside of my calf, or the back of my calf. And the soft part, the fuzzy part of the Velcro, is actually over here on this side. So once I got my shins assembled, this is just E6000. Don't use the Velcro that already has the adhesive on it, because it doesn't work right. It won't hold up under the heat and everything. So I cleaned this off really well. I roughed it up really good, and then I actually E6000 the Velcro to the back of the shin, and then I did the same thing. You're not going to be able to see it, but the fuzzy part of the Velcro runs the full length right through here, so that when you put this on, you have a closure from top almost to bottom. Now the plastic is going to want to flex, so as you can see, it doesn't close up perfectly. There is kind of a little gap right here, but again, that's just the way the imperfections in the armor come out. And when you're walking, that's the back of the calf, so nobody's going to be able to see it. The other thing that I did was you have to have the cover strips on the outside. So I've got a cover strip here on the outside, and being that especially this piece gets a lot of flex when you walk, and it also gets a lot of flex when you open it up all the time to put it on and off, I actually have a cover strip right here on the inside as well. So what I did first was, as I assembled my calves, I did the cover strip on the inside first, let that dry, and then I came back and did the cover strip on the outside. And it just made it a lot easier too, because typically you want a little bit of what they call a reveal right here. I think it's supposed to be about 1/8 of an inch, but you'll have to look in the CRL to be sure exactly how that's lined up and go on the forums. And that just made it easier to put the whole thing together. I used clamps to do this, and then also you can buy the high strength magnets, and you can place the magnets both in the inside and the outside along this that hold it in place while the glue dries. Now on my left shin, and this is a Sandtrooper, so it's got the sniper knee plate. I first put the knee plate on using a different method from the way that I have now. And as you're walking, this plate actually ends up hitting your thighs. So it's constantly just bouncing off your thighs. It gets a lot of force back and forth. And this is just basically a hollow shell. There's nothing to it. It's all been vacuum formed. What I ended up doing on mine, and it's a little bit hard to see, but I ended up using scrap plastic to build up where I wanted it to go. And then through that scrap plastic, I put screws to hold that in place. Scrap plastic underneath this. The screws are on the inside. I used washers on the inside. And then I found that this was actually rubbing up against my leg as I walked. So this is a piece of weather stripping that, you know, amazingly it's been there for several years. I don't even know how many miles and miles of troops I've done, but it kept this from rubbing up against my leg and picking up my Under Armour when I was doing that. So as far as the boots are pretty self-explanatory. These boots are actually black Chelsea boots, and Chelsea is the name of the style, not the brand. These used to be really popular, I guess, back in the 70s, and when I began trooping, or when I was building my armor, it was really hard to find these boots. So there was a waiting list online for all of the people who make a lot of these boots for the 501st and other costuming groups. I was able to find these online, and basically in the movies, I did it the same way they did in the movies. I taped off the soles with painter's tape, and then I did several coats of spray paint. Now that'll work for a Sandtrooper. I seriously doubt that's going to work for a standard Stormtrooper, a TK, because you know the Sandtroopers want all their stuff to be aged and dirty, and actually the spray paint worked out really well. You can see that it's just really aged itself really good with the way that the creases have shown and everything like that. And again, I talked about how I mismade my shins. This is what happens also when you mismake it, is that it's so tight on the back of the boot, it's actually eating a hole through the back of the leather here. So eventually I'm going to have to buy new boots or buy new shins to remedy that situation. As far as the fabric here, because I did paint these, this is fabric paint. Spray paint will just soak right into this. You're going to have to get a good fabric paint. Just do several coats on top of it, and then after I did that, I scuffed them up and weathered them, and I'll have another video that talks about all the weathering. But that's basically the rundown on boots and shins. So if you have any questions, just post them below. I'll try and answer them. And then in the link below, you can subscribe, and you can go and watch all the other videos for my Sandtrooper armor. Thanks.